Unlock this mindset before sleep to manifest your dream reality. Shocking truth revealed. It was a midnight chill, the kind that creeps under your skin and whispers secrets nobody wants to hear. In the quiet town of Willow Creek, where whispers of the supernatural danced with the fog, an old legend stirred. Every local knew about the mysterious book hidden in the depths of the library's archives, the one rumored to unlock a mindset so powerful it could reshape reality itself. They said if you found the book and read it just before sleep, your desires would sizzle into existence overnight. But what they didn't know was what this pursuit could cost. As the clock struck 12, Annie, a determined skeptic with wide, curious eyes, felt an invisible pull toward that library. The air inside was thick with dust motes swirling like restless spirits, and a chill ran down her spine as sheer curiosity urged her forward. Each step echoed with the weight of history, and the shadows morphed beneath the flickering lights, hinting at hidden truths. This was no ordinary place. The walls seemed to breathe, the old papers crackled with vibrant energy, and somewhere in the air, a soft whisper promised discovery and danger. Annie stumbled upon an old oak door, its rusty handle resisting her eager grasp. It creaked open, revealing dimly lit shelves lined with tomes that felt like they had lived 1,000 lives. Amongst them, one book caught her eye. It shimmered slightly, almost pulsing with an otherworldly glow. What would happen if she opened it? What truths lay within those pages? Her heart raced, wild thoughts swirling through her mind. Could this truly be the key to a life unchained? Suddenly, a chill sliced through the air, and the lights dimmed further, as if the entire library held its breath. Just then, she heard a soft rustle nearby, followed by a low, gravelly voice that sent a shiver down her spine. "You shouldn't be here. Not tonight." The words clawed at her insides, igniting a cocktail of fear and excitement. Who was in here with her, and what did they know about the book? Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Annie's heart thudded in her chest. She turned towards the voice, her breath catching in her throat. There, shrouded in shadows, stood a figure cloaked in mystery. Was it friend or foe? And could the promise of manifesting her dreams be a curse instead? The answers hung in the air, elusive and shimmering just out of reach, drawing her deeper into the enigma of the night. Would she dare to ask? Would she unlock the knowledge that could change everything? The library's pulse quickened with anticipation, and as she took a step closer to the figure, the book flickered before her, full of profound, thrilling secrets yet to be revealed. What awaited her was a reality she could only begin to imagine. Annie swallowed hard, her pulse racing as shadows danced around the figure. "Who are you?" she managed to whisper, her voice trembling slightly. The dim light cast an eerie glow on the person's face, highlighting deep-set eyes that seemed to pierce right through her soul. "A guardian of sorts," the figure replied, their voice echoing softly through the hollow library. "And you should turn back. The book isn't what you think it is." Annie's stomach twisted. Was this just a figment of the dim lighting, an apparition conjured by her imagination, or was the figure real? She took a step forward, leaning into the light. She needed answers. "Why? What do you know about it?" The guardian paused for a moment, measuring her resolve. "It's not simply a book of wishes. To read it is to invite chaos. Every desire you call upon will have a price, and that price often comes with consequences you cannot fathom." She was torn. The allure of manifesting her dreams danced tantalizingly in her mind. But could it really be true? Did she want to gamble with something so unknown? What kind of consequences? The guardian leaned closer, their voice now a low whisper, as if afraid to let the ancient tomes overhear. The book extracts a weight from your life. For each wish fulfilled, something precious will be taken in return. A lump formed in her throat. She thought of her mom, her friends, people she loved. What if that weight fell on them? Yet, a flicker of desire ignited within her. Annie had always struggled to find her place, trapped in a life she felt was just mundane. The thought of breaking free, of life bursting with color, was intoxicating. What if I'm ready to pay the price? She demanded, half afraid of her own words. The figure recoiled slightly at her conviction. You think you are brave, but true courage lies in knowing what you might lose and still choosing to proceed. Annie hesitated, grappling with the gravity of the moment. She took a step back, glancing over her shoulder at the glowing book that waited, eager to be opened. Was she willing to sacrifice something or someone for her dreams? Could she truly handle being the architect of her own destiny when the cost was shrouded in uncertainty? Suddenly, the library was alive with an electricity that made her hair stand on end. The lights flickered erratically, and the whispers of pages turning filled the air, though there was no one else there but her and the figure. Something was shifting, and she could feel the tension rising. Like a thunderstorm brewing, time was slipping away, and she could sense that the guardian would vanish if she didn't act. Just one question, she said, voice rising with urgency. What's the cost of just knowing? The guardian's expression darkened, the shadows thickening around them. Knowledge often holds its own price, my dear. Are you prepared for that? Before Annie could gather her thoughts, the room plunged into darkness, bubbling with tension and filled with a low rumble, like the warning growl of thunder. Her breath quickened, and panic clawed at her insides. Wait, she shouted, feeling for the guardian's presence as everything around her started to tremble. But the darkness swallowed her words, enveloping her in a silence so deep it throbbed in her ears. Annie felt a rush of despair. Had she made a terrible mistake? And just like that, the room ignited with a surge of energy. Light burst back, illuminating the library, but the guardian had vanished, leaving only the book behind. A chilling breeze swept through the room, carrying the scent of paper and something metallic. Annie, heart-pounding, reached for the book. There was no turning back now. Whatever awaited her within those pages was closer than ever, and the whispers of her desires began to call her name. But in the distance, a soft, sinister laugh echoed, one that promised secrets yet unimaginable. What truths lay beneath those pages? And was the cost worth paying? Annie would soon find out. Annie's fingertips brushed against the cover of the book, the texture rough and worn like the arid skin of an ancient creature. Something inside her stirred. A burning curiosity mingled with the chilling dread that swept through her stomach. The whispers grew louder, an urgent chorus that seemed to beckon her closer. Open me, they seemed to chant, and discover your fate. Heart racing, Annie snatched the book from the shelf, her breath hitching. The ominous laugh echoed in her mind, shadowy and mocking. Was she really ready for whatever lay within? She cracked the spine, the sound an ominous creak, like bones groaning in the night. The pages fluttered, feeling alive, filled with energy, her energy. Each word pulsed with a life of its own, shadows shifting under the flickering lights, as if the library itself was watching. Annie's eyes danced over the delicate lettering, and her heart sank as each line unfolded into dreams she had long desired: a successful career, romance, adventure. Her hands trembled, but for every dream that flickered enticingly before her, another voice whispered caution in her ear. The guardian's words echoed in her head. The weight, the sacrifice. Can you pay the price? She shoved the thought away, unwilling to let it fracture her resolve. Annie's finger traced a wish written in golden ink. To possess the gift of confidence, to speak freely and without fear. Her heart raced at the prospect. A simple wish, one that everyone craved at some point. How many times had she stood on the edge of sharing her true self and held back? She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and whispered the words. I wish for the gift of confidence. A rush of wind filled the library, pages of the book fluttering wildly around her like trapped spirits seeking release. She clutched it tighter, and a blinding light burst forth, engulfing her in radiant warmth. Joy welled up inside her, an exhilarating feeling that shot through her veins. It was intoxicating, but as quickly as it came, dread overshadowed the thrill. A whisper, a chilling echo crept into her mind. "What must you give?" Taunted. The light dimmed abruptly, leaving her gasping in darkness once more. Panic gripped her. She stumbled back, the book slipping from her grasp. It fell open, the pages flipping frantically until they landed on an image. Surreal in its clarity, a snapshot depicting her mother, smiling broadly. The promise of her wishes contrasted starkly against this image, a haunting reminder of what she truly valued. Heat surged in Annie's chest, and she clenched her fists, anger rising like bile. "What do you want from me?" she yelled into the emptiness. But silence enveloped her like a fog, the weight of it pressing down hard. The lights flickered ominously again, and the sinister laugh returned, a haunting melody that chilled her bones. The book seemed to vibrate, as if alive, as she felt an undeniable pull toward it. With trembling hands, she grabbed the book again, frantic to find answers. "What is the cost?" she demanded. The pages responded, flipping to another wish. Her heart sank as she recognized it immediately. Another image, this time of her best friend, laughing and carefree. What's her price? Annie's breath hitched. Was she willing to put her friend at risk for her own desires? The colors of her dreams began to dull, the truth sinking into the depths of her being. She felt paralyzed, trapped between the life she yearned for and the precious ties that held her as the library trembled around her. She caught a glimpse of movement in the corner of her vision. Shadows coalesced into unmistakable forms. The guardian was back, but this time they were not alone. They leaned forward, their dark eyes gleaming ominously. "You've awakened the spirits of those you care about. Now," they paused, letting the weight of their words sink in. "Now you must choose." Annie's heart roared in her chest. Was this the moment to forge her destiny or the beginning of her undoing? The book promised everything, yet the laughter of fate suspended the moment in air, heavy and oppressive. What choice would she make when the stakes were suddenly so personal, so perilous? The hairs on her neck prickled with dread as the shadows swirled closer, closing in. It was a defining moment, a pivot between the dream she craved and the reality she cherished. But before she could speak, a strange voice, velvety and melodic, arose from the depths of the book. "What will you sacrifice for a chance to rewrite your story?" Annie froze, knowing she was on the precipice of a choice that could change everything. The shadows tightened their circle around her, their forms flickering and twisting like smoke. Annie could barely breathe, her heart echoing in her ears, a frantic drumbeat against the oppressive silence. The voice from the book lingered, curling around her thoughts like a vine, suffocating yet enticing. "What will you sacrifice?" it sang, sending chills down her spine. I won T sacrifice them," she gasped, her fists clenched around the edges of the ancient book. But the shadows only laughed, a discordant symphony that both terrified and mesmerized her. "Will you choose your own happiness over their safety?" the guardian taunted, stepping closer, its form growing undefined, as if it were composed entirely of fear and doubt. "Power is never free, child. Every desire demands a toll." The memories of her mother filled her mind, the warmth of their shared laughter, the strength of her guidance. Each image felt like a dagger, twisting deeper into her heart. And then there was Chloe, her best friend. Outgoing, adventurous Chloe who had always believed in her, when Annie didn't believe in herself. The thought of exposing either of them to danger was unbearable. Annie's grip tightened on the book, and her breath came in shallow bursts. "You can't take them from me," she shouted defiantly, but doubt gnawed at the edges of her resolve. What kind of power was she flirting with? Flashes of her past floated up, the moments when doubt had silenced her voice and fear kept her still. "Don't you want to break free?" the shadows whispered. "Don't you want to live?" Annie hesitated, her mind spinning. What did living truly mean? To chase the shimmering dreams while leaving behind those she loved? A part of her ached for freedom, yet another part screamed in protest. "No, I won't make that choice," she breathed, almost to herself. But the book pulsed against her palms as if urging her to reconsider. It was seductive, wrapping her thoughts in silky tendrils, offering her something more than just confidence, an entire life crafted from her desires. Visions cascaded through her mind. A career that shone bright, travel to distant worlds, love that promised endless joy. But then she thought of Chloe, and her heart splintered. What would she even think of me? How could I betray her trust? The laughter erupted again, richer and more dissonant. Then why are you still here? You cannot have both. It is a choice, my dear Annie. Make it. Panic bubbled up as reality pressed in around her. The lights above flickered violently, then plunged her into darkness. The book felt warm amidst the chaos, and she realized it wasn't just the shadows that surrounded her. It was temptation. Her pulse quickened, and the breath caught in her throat. Her every instinct screamed at her to flee, but desperation mingled with an insatiable hunger for change. I can't stand this, she shouted into the void, gripping the book tighter as if it were her lifeline. I need help. I need guidance. From the shadows, a figure moved, an ethereal presence, lighter than a whisper, but bold against the pitch-black void. The guardian's eyes shimmered with an unsettling mix of challenge and empathy. Then find the truth in your heart, it whispered softly. Suddenly, a blinding burst of light forced Annie to shield her eyes, breaking the oppressive atmosphere around her. The figure transformed into a fleeting glimpse of her mother, a ghostly yet loving smile brightening the gloom. Annie, her voice, fragile and distant, echoed through the library. Your heart knows the right choice. Listen closely. Annie's breath caught in her throat as clarity struck like lightning. Her mind raced with images, her heart pounding with hope. But in that moment, a darkness stirred somewhere deep within. What was she truly willing to sacrifice? As the light began to dim, the voices faded back into the shadows, leaving her trembling in uncertainty. That question hung in the air like poison. More than just dreams hung in the balance. Would she find the strength to rewrite her story, or would she surrender to fear? The very threads of her fate wove tighter around her, and the book lay open before her, waiting and watching. What comes next could shatter everything she knew. But would she dare take the plunge? Annie stood peering into the abyss, the shadows swirling menacingly around her, taunting her with their whispers of fear and longing. Her breath came in heavy gasps as she fought against the darkness, trying to summon the courage that seemed to flounder just out of reach. The book lay open in her trembling hands, its pages fluttering like desperate wings, urging her toward a precipice she couldn't bear to approach. Listen closely, her mother's voice echoed in her mind, flickering against the cacophony of shadows. But how could she listen when every sound felt like a blade? The weight of the tower of decisions pressed heavily upon her chest, stifling her air. Annie, a sultry, sinister sneer crept in. You are far more capable than you believe. Power is not given. It is taken. You simply need to reach out and grasp it. You can change everything. Why remain a puppet to fate? The guardian's voice dripped with temptation, caressing her ears with promises of greatness and fulfillment. Yet, deep inside her, she felt the stir of warning bells ringing loudly. Was this really the change she craved? Or simply the will of a darkness that thrived on desperation? Anger surged through her veins. Was she really contemplating the darkness? She slammed the book shut, a bold act that sent a gust of power through her small form, making the shadows recoil momentarily as if burned. I refuse to negotiate with you, she shouted, defiance cutting through her fear like a knife. The shadows hissed in response, coiling tight and shimmering intensely before reforming into the figure of Chloe, her best friend. Doe-eyed and hopeful, yet crafted from the very essence of the darkness threatening to consume Annie. You truly think you can turn your back on me? On everything we dreamed of? It was a mirror, reflecting her deepest insecurities and dread. No, stay away from her, Annie cried, a wave of panic flooding her. You're not real. You're just a trick of the shadows. Oh, but am I? Chloe asked, tilting her head, her smile teasing yet edged with sorrow. What if I'm the part of your heart that knows you're meant for more? What if your desires aren't a betrayal? The guardianess voice joined in, buoyed by Chloe's form. Do you want to remain in this tiny space? Or do you wish to climb the heights of greatness? You must choose, Annie. Annie's pulse raced as she faced the specter of her friend. The shadows morphing, melding around them into grotesque forms, shrieking her own self-doubt. Give in. You wanted the career, the admiration, the love. But you're chained by your attachments, no. She screamed, feeling the chains of fear rattle inside her mind. You're lying. I can have both. The shadows paused, the air around her thick with tension. Was this true? Could she balance her desires with her loved ones? Annie clenched her fists, gripping the book tighter. I want my life on my own terms. I don't need your influence. I refuse. With that declaration, a crack began to form in the shadow's hold. But as the darkness shied away, a chill shot through her. What had she unleashed? The voices doubled over, fraying into a chaotic mix of wails and laughter, and the wall of shadows quivered ominously. But what will happen if you choose your call? The shadows whispered, seeping back into her mind. Can you truly carry your friends while reaching for greatness? Or will you let them slip through your fingers like dust? Annie stood amidst the chaos, every question a ticking bomb in her chest. The balance teetered perilously close to collapse. Would she tear apart the fabric that held her relationships, or risk her ambitions for their safety? The shadows boiled with doubts, and the light flickered above her as if pleading for direction, for a decision. She felt the weight of her choice bearing down, her heart thrumming a wild rhythm of fear and resolve. A vivid vision consumed her. Her mother's proud smile juxtaposed against Chloe's pleading eyes. But as the echoes of conflict rose, Annie realized it wasn't just about choosing for herself or them, but breaking free of the chains. Completely. Fighting against the looming despair, she whispered to the universe, I will forge a path that honors us all. The moment hung silently like suspended breath. Clarity buzzed in the air, but before she could fully embrace it, a piercing shriek erupted. A storm of shadows surged forward, intent on dousing her spark of hope. What awaited her in the darkness? Would she remain steadfast, or would the shadows consume her once and for all? Annie's heart thundered in her chest as the shadows lunged, a swirling mass of cold darkness eager to snuff out the fire within her. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to escape the suffocating grasp of fear. Yet she stood her ground, teeth clenched, fists trembling. In that moment, the flickering light above her blazed brighter, illuminating the edges of her reality, chasing the shadows with fierce defiance. What are you waiting for? The guardian's voice cut through the chaos, laced with a mocking grin. You think bravery is enough to defeat me? You are still a child lost in the dark. No more. Annie shouted, words bursting forth like bolts of lightning. I'm not afraid of you. Not anymore. As if pierced by her fierce spirit, the shadows recoiled just slightly, revealing the depths of their malice. The thought that the darkness may indeed falter ignited something within her, a bubbling well of determination. Each breath she took filled her with newfound strength, grounding her amidst the storm. Suddenly, Chloe's form flickered like a faulty bulb. Annie, that's not what you want. Don't you see? Tears welled in her ghostly eyes. The anguish reflected in her gaze felt suffocating, a gravitational pull toward despair. You're meant to rely on others. You're not strong enough to face this alone. It stung, each word cutting deeper than any blade. You're wrong. Annie cried, clenching the book tightly, its spine pressing into her palm like a shield. I can forge my own path. We can be together on my terms. The last part tore from her throat, raw and vulnerable. The shadows recoiled further, and as they hesitated, an unexpected pulse surged through her, radiating warmth amid the ice-cold dread. Annie felt a connection pulling at her heart, one that spanned beyond friendships and dreams. This was about her true essence, the part of her that knew deep down that love and ambition could coexist, that she didn't have to abandon anyone to realize her dreams. I choose to embrace my fears, she shouted to the storm. I'll learn, I'll grow, and we'll rise together. Her voice echoed back in the darkness, a beacon cutting through the endless night. In response, the shadows roared, a collective howl of anguish and fury. They twisted and writhed like serpents, their anger palpable and thick. Annie realized they were not simply shadows. They were her doubts, her anxieties, the weight of 1,000 unspoken fears that had built up over the years. Face them, the guardian hissed. They are your reality. With each word, the chaos mounted, twisting into a vortex spiraling closer, threatening to engulf her completely. She felt caught in a whirlpool of darkness, threatening to pull her under. But amid the encroaching dread, Annie stood steady, grounding herself in her fiery resolve. "Leave me," she shouted, voice ringing with authority. "You do not own me. I decide my fate." With a final surge of energy pulsing through her, she thrust the book forward like a sword. Its pages glimmered with a light of their own, casting radiant beams that sliced through the shadows converging upon her. In an instant, the shadows faltered, their grip losing its control. "What is happening?" Chloe shrieked as the light scattered the darkness. Realization sparked within Annie a greater truth: her worth wasn't bound to others' approval or fears. But even as she fought back, the shadows changed tactics, growing more frantic. Their voices clawed at her resolve, blending into a symphony of anguish. "You can't escape us. You belong to the shadows. They will never release you." Annie's heart raced, the weight of truth settling heavily as she sensed a power awakening inside her. The shadows tasted her fear and fed off her doubts, eager to reclaim their hold. "No." She grasped the book tighter, feeling the rush of energy, the promise of hope. "I am not alone. I choose to love and pursue greatness." But the shadows howled in protest, swirling in on themselves, the air thick with unspoken dread. The storm brewed dangerously close, encircling her as darkness hissed around like a predator closing. Annie felt the world shift. What would become of her now? Was this the moment of true liberation, or merely the calm before a dreadful storm? The shadows loomed closer, their hunger palpable. Annie gritted her teeth, feeling the weight of their presence pressing down on her. They weren't just dark figures. They embodied everything she had ever feared: failure, rejection, loneliness. The very essence of her insecurities surged forward like a tidal wave, seeking to drown her hope. "Remember, Annie," the guardian's wicked grin widened. "The light can only last so long. You cannot fight forever. You need me, need this darkness." His voice was oily and thick, slithering into her mind, trying to bind her will. "No," she cried, shaking her head as if to dislodge his words. "You don't control me." As the shadows whipped around, despair tugged at her core. She could feel the heat of her own emotions colliding with the freeze of her doubts. Heart racing, she focused on the warmth that ignited inside her, the very essence she had discovered. This fire wasn't just hers, it was shared, ignited by love, friendship, and dream. "Chloe, I need you," Annie shouted, glancing at her flickering friend. The bond between them rippled, a thin thread of light stretching across the abyss. "Help me." From the depths, Chloe floated closer, her ghostly presence shimmering more intensely this time. "You are stronger than you know. I believe in you." Her voice wavered but bore a weight of conviction that filled the air. And suddenly, Annie felt an invigorating surge. The shadows recoiled, hissing as if they recognized their true threat: a light born from trust and belief. With a fierce yell, Annie raised the book high. It pulsed with energy, swirling with colors that splintered into 1,000 beams. "This is my story." The light vibrated as the book's magic summoned the memories of laughter, love, and courage. The shadows twisted and snapped, desperately trying to snuff out the flames of inspiration. But with every shout of confidence, more light cascaded into the fray. Every voice of encouragement she'd ever received vibrated through her, attracting the shadows, a magnet pulling them with furious intensity. They circled like wolves, but their howling was now desperate, losing the ferocity of the hunt as Annie's resolve solidified. "Do you really think you can change?" the guardian challenged, laced with disbelief. You think you can rewrite destiny? Yes. Annie screamed, breathing deeply, forcing out her fears. She no longer wanted to be a passive observer in her life. I can change. That roar echoed in the confines of her mind, revitalizing her spirit as the swirling light intensified. Just as the shadows began to fracture, the guardian lunged forward, his form morphing, becoming a beast of pure rage. The chaos amplified, drawing closer to Annie as the very air crackled with tension. It felt like a storm preparing to unleash. You are just a child. You don't know the pain of losing everything. I've already lost, she shot back fiercely. And I've learned that loss doesn't define me. As the words left her mouth, a blazing light burst forth from the book. A wave of energy surged forward, enveloping both the shadows and the guardian. But just before impact, the darkness flickered, revealing something a small, flickering flame embedded in the depths. Annie's heart clenched. What was hidden in that darkness? Her breath caught. The shadows writhed and twisted, revealing a dreadful truth. You cannot run from the pain within you, Annie. It is part of you. That last echoing phrase hung in the air, heavy and thick. What horrors lay behind that flame? Would the battle for her heart and soul turn into a nightmare unlike anything she had faced? Annie's heart raced as the last words of the guardian echoed in her mind. It is part of you. Each syllable felt like a jagged knife scraping against her insides. The flickering flame in the shadows beckoned, pulling at her curiosity, but a waterfall of dread cascaded down her spine. What lay hidden beneath the veil of darkness? With jolts of terror and resolve, she took a step closer, the weight of the book heavy in her grip. The light around her quivered, but it was not just fear that flickered within. It was recognition and understanding that the flame contained something vital to her own existence. Face it, she murmured to herself, her voice barely breaking through the mounting chaos. It's time to confront what I've been running from. With deliberate slowness, she stepped toward the heart of the shadows. The cacophony grew louder, swirling around her as the darkness tried to pull her back. A desperate plea of forgotten emotions and memories. Anxiety clawed at her throat, but Annie clenched her fists, the warmth of her shared fire pushing back against the cold within. She focused on Chloe's encouragement, the unwavering belief that ignited her spirit once more. As she moved closer, the flickering flame began to reveal its form. It danced, shifting shapes with each disrupted breath. A picture began to emerge, a snapshot of moments she had buried deep. The sound of her mother's laughter, the ache of her father's absence, the sting of betrayal from those she once trusted. These were pieces of her past that had turned into shadows, now swirling around her like ghostly apparitions. No more hiding, Annie shouted, the sound of her own voice ringing defiance against the dark. The shadows recoiled at her proclamation, shrieking as the light pushed forward, but they didn't vanish. Instead, sparks flickered in the darkness, intensifying the shadows' rage. Do you see? The guardianess voice twisted through the chaos, both mocking and seductive. They are you. Your fears, your failures, they make you whole. You cannot sever what has already bound you. Annie pressed her lips together. He was trying to bind her again, to convince her that the past couldn't be rewritten. But a flood of memories rushed forth, powerful and pristine, illuminating her path. She wasn't just the scars and heartaches. She was also the joy, the adventure, the love that made her, and she had the right to embrace every single part. With that realization, she lifted the book higher. I am not defined by my shadows. The words burst forth, igniting the air around her. A radiant wave flowed from the book, crashing into the shadows, a force to be reckoned with. The flame within began to expand, exposing the hidden truths that lay shrouded in darkness. Annie felt a sense of awakening. The pain was real, but it didn't imprison her. It could fuel her transformation instead. The guardian screamed, the sound of his rage boiling over. This was not how it was supposed to be. As the light pulsed stronger, cracks began to form in the darkness, letting streaks of brilliance cut through. Annie could feel the victory thrumming in her veins. But even as she surged forward, doubt snaked through her heart. What if I still can't bear to face it? She thought, anxiety tugging at her. The shadows shrieked in reply as her bravery brought out their fury, twisting around her like thorny vines. Annie steadied herself, taking deep breaths, recalling Chloe's presence, her unwavering belief. "I can do this, I will do this," she whispered. But as she pushed against the enveloping darkness, would the pain be too great to bear? The light intensified, and suddenly she found herself standing at the edge of that haunting flame. The faces of her memories flashed before her like a film reel, spinning, each frame heavy with emotions she feared to embrace. What truth lay at the center of that flickering flame? Could facing it truly redefine her? The Guardian's laughter echoed, shaking the ground beneath her as shadows danced frantically around them. "Face your fears, Annie, if you dare," and with that whisper, the realm around her began to twist, morphing into something unrecognizable. Would all of it unearth the terrifying depths of heartbreak buried within, or would it finally lead to her liberation? A flash of white-hot light erupted, and in that moment of blinding brilliance, Annie teetered on the cusp of revelation. The line between darkness and light blurred, and she was left hanging in the balance. What awaited her on the other side of that flame? Would facing the truth finally unlock the path to her own salvation? The answers loomed like an unseen tide, ready to either sweep her under or carry her to the shores of a new beginning. The light enveloped Annie, wrapping around her like a cocoon. It pulsed with energy, vibrant and alive. But in the distance, she heard the echoes of her past whispers of doubt, clawing at the edges of her courage. The warmth of the flame blurred her vision as she stood on the precipice, gazing into the depths where shadows writhed, desperate to reclaim her. "Step through," a haunting voice called, echoing off the walls of her mind. It belonged to the Guardian, but it was deeper, more sinister, a strain of her own thoughts contorting in the darkness. "You know you can't escape." For a moment, Annie hesitated. The flames flickered violently, yearning for release while the darkness slithered closer, tugging at her sleeves. "What if I don't like what I find?" Her heart thundered, filling her ears with a heavy beat. But deep within her, a fire ignited a resolute defiance. "I deserve to know," she shouted into the chaos, the words ringing clear and strong. The shadows convulsed violently, the air thickening with the tension of her choice. Annie closed her eyes, taking a deep breath as she stepped forward, eager to embrace whatever lay ahead. As her foot crossed into the uncharted realm, the light exploded, throwing images at her like daggers. She was back. Annie found herself in her childhood living room, the scent of fresh cookies wafting around her, mingled with the bittersweet memory of her mother's laughter. "Annie, come here," the echoed voice called out, sweet and inviting, yet coated in the melancholy of absence. Her heart tightened. What if this was a trick? "It's only a memory," she whispered, her voice trembling. But as Annie ventured further into the scene, warmth filled her core. She reached out to touch the familiar worn couch, her fingers grazing the fabric, and the image blurred like watercolor bleeding into water. The shadows warped around her, dark vines twisting to ensnare the corners of the room, holding her past hostage. "Face it, you aren't just a girl haunted by the past." The Guardian's voice sliced through her apprehension, each word wrapped in urgency. "You're the sum of what you've experienced. Let it flow through you." Annie inhaled sharply, the shape of her mother's laughter morphing into echoes of anguished silence, the absence that followed her father's departure. "No." The denial spilled from her lips as the sadness surged within her, a tidal wave threatening to crush her. "I can't bear this." But the flames surged higher, igniting a stubborn resilience. The laughter returned, intertwining with her pain, and she could feel it. The love, the joy, the loss, all part of the same tapestry that told her story. "I'm not just my fear," she realized. With newfound strength, Annie reached into her heart, pulling together all the joy, sorrow, and love that made her who she was. "I am more than this," she roared, her voice booming like thunder in the tempest. The room morphed again, sweeping her into a vast expanse of stars. She was suspended in the cosmos, surrounded by vibrant galaxies. This was not just a memory. It was the essence of her being. Each star flickered with a piece of her soul, each glowing orb a moment she had lived victories, failures, and everything in between. And then it struck her. They were interconnected. Her heart pulsed with exhilaration, thrilled by this discovery. She spun around, wondering if the guardian would appear to challenge her newfound insight. What now? She called into the darkness swirling around her, certainty in her voice. But do you really understand? His voice reverberated, seductive yet terrifying. What will you do with the truths that you uncover? Annie felt the weight of his words. Was she ready to embrace the depth of her own truth? The intertwining of light and shadow would demand more than she had ever bargained for. As she drifted among the stars, the sense of impending danger thrummed within her like a heartbeat, urgent and powerful. She had taken the first leap, but fear gripped her once more. What if the liberation she sought came at a price she was unwilling to pay? And in that moment she felt them gather, the shadows, the memories, the guardian. They stirred within her, waiting for her next move. What would she choose? Would she unravel her heart or retreat into the familiar embrace of darkness? The answer hung tantalizingly close, whispering through the veil of the infinite if only she could summon the courage to grasp it. Annie floated, suspended in that celestial tapestry, radiant and overwhelming with memories. Each star was a reminder of her journey, her pain and joy mingling in a cosmic dance. This is who I am, she breathed, overwhelmed yet grounded. The whispers of the past echoed softly, urging her to acknowledge every piece within her, each triumph, each failure a fragmented mosaic that made her whole. But then she felt the shadows shift, their presence pressing, a familiar sensation. Doubts creeping in again like dark vines, tentacles of fear clutching at her ankles. Is this the truth you want to live with? The guardian's voice taunted, rising from the abyss, sinister and enticing. Can you bear the weight of knowing? Knowing what? She retorted, her voice steady, fueled by the radiant energy pulsing around her. As the guardian flickered closer, shadows contorting, Annie faced the darkness head-on. Knowing that it might hurt, that it could shatter everything, she took a breath, gathering her thoughts, steeling herself. I already know the pain of loss. This darkness, it may try to encompass me, but it doesn't own me. With each word, Annie felt a surge of connection blossom inside her. She reached deep within, finding the threads of love that wove through her memories, a golden light surrounding her like a shield. It was there, amidst the chaos, that she discovered her power, a fierce determination to embrace all parts of her journey. The light and the dark, the laughter and the tears. The shadows writhed, dismayed, but Annie felt emboldened. You cannot take the truth from me, she shouted, embracing the heat swirling in her veins, igniting her heart. Then show me, the guardian bellowed. What will you do with it? Annie closed her eyes, focusing on the memories that shone like stars in her mind. She could see her mother's bright smile, the warmth of her embrace, the laughter at their family dinners. She visualized Chloe cheering her on, always there, unwavering in her friendship. I will rise with them, she declared. I will honor my past, my friends, and my dreams. I choose to walk forward, bringing everything together. The moment she spoke those words, the stars exploded in bright cascades of light, illuminating the darkness that enveloped her. Annie felt free, every fear and doubt falling away like dead leaves. The colors churned, swirling, merging like a brilliant aurora. The guardian faltered, a flicker of confusion flashing across its form. What have you done? Its voice trembled, witnessing the crumbling darkness around it. I've realized hope does not need to come without pain, she exclaimed, her voice fierce like thunder. I can carry my dreams without sacrificing those I love. The light enveloped her, expanding outward, shimmering and vibrant, illuminating the corners hidden in shadows. The guardian lunged forward, its shadowy claws slashing through the air, but the brilliance expanding from Annie pushed them back. You cannot take from me any longer. With those words, the shadows recoiled, dissolving like mist before the dawn. Annie felt the energy thrumming in her body, pouring through as the shadows shook and tore apart. With every pulse of light, Pieces of her past aligned the warmth of family, the laughter of friends creating an inseparable bond that strengthened her resolve. Power comes from knowing and embracing all of who I am to reclaim my story. With one final push, the light exploded outward, a wave of energy that swept across the library. The walls surged with color, enveloping every dark corner, pushing back the suffocating shadows, reclaiming her space. Annie opened her eyes, heart racing, and darkness dissipated into shimmering dust, scattering like tiny stars on the ground. The guardianess figure melted into the ether, leaving only a sigh escaping into the air. A sense of peace washed over her. She felt liberated, standing firm in her truth. The library felt filled with soft warmth now, illuminated with possibility. Annie smiled, breathing in the sweet air, letting it fill her soul. She understood that the journey would still hold challenges, but she walked forward stronger, braver, and more determined as she stepped away from the remnants of the darkness. She embraced the day ahead. I'll never stop showing up for myself. The shadows scattered into the corners, remnants of whispers fading away, replaced by a comforting silence filled with potential. Annie's heart swelled with gratitude as she thought of her mother, of Chloe, and all those who supported her journey. She felt whole, each piece of her life a melody harmonizing together, resonating with a clarity she had longed for. Her eyes glimmered with that newfound hope, bright, unyielding, and profoundly human. She turned, stepping into the light, ready to embrace all that awaited. She knew she would never walk alone. Moments flowed like gentle waves reaching the shore, each pulse representing beginnings, each step a promise kept. The end of one chapter morphed into the beginning of another, and with a heart full of courage, she walked forward into her reality, ready to reclaim every moment. And now, it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. Did you see it coming? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.